There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello and welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and I'm here with Joe Stanley in our temporary studio here in Melbourne. Good to see you again, Joe. How are you?
Oh, I'm really well, but I have to admit I've had my down times, so I'm pretty happy to be here with you right now, Darcy.
We're missing our third member of the trio, Joe. That's Luke Hines. He's in his home state, so he can't be with us, unfortunately. But over the coming weeks, he'll be cooking up a storm in his kitchen with some survival meals. He's invented a couple of new ones too, Joe, which I really love. There's his Keep Calmlet. That's his special omelette and one of my favourites, I think, within my repertoire as well. And the Let Me Outside leftovers, Joe.
I love that. It's an isolation sensation.
Now, while many of you are rediscovering life at home, today we're bringing the world to you.
That's right, Darcy. If there is a positive to come out of all of this, it's how technology is keeping us connected. Every day we see pictures from around the world, and today we hear Marilyn Georgiev's story, an Aussie living in Paris, plus what impact has the global shutdown had on the environment. A leading researcher will share his thoughts with us, Darcy.
Yeah, challenging is the word we're using most at the moment, especially in terms of the economy. An Aussie finance expert will also be dropping in via video to chat, Joe.
Well, the global shutdown has changed everything. Our freedom is compromised because it has to be in order to beat this thing. No social gatherings, 2 people max, travel a no-go, and the end for now of our backyard barbies, dining out, weddings and even funerals.
Yeah, massive changes to the way we live, that's for sure. One of our team here at the House of Wellness lost her grandfather recently. She has a big family, so I was unable to attend the funeral, nor could the rest of her family attend the wake. Now, we'll speak to a funeral director a little bit later on, but right now, a regular on the show who's had first-hand experience with this is medico Dr Nick Carr.
Nick travelled to England to see his elderly mum just before the international travel ban was enforced. Das spoke to him on his return during his time in mandatory 2-week isolation.
I went over there to help my sister look after our elderly mother, and yeah, she actually passed away while I was there, which of course was very sad. But it was very peaceful, and I was just very lucky to be there with her. She's a pretty amazing person, my mum. I know everyone thinks their mum's amazing, but she was a world expert on Down syndrome, and just a few years ago, she was at Windsor Castle getting an OBE from the Queen.
What a great story. In terms of arranging a funeral in the UK with the coronavirus, how did you go and can you talk us through that?
Yeah, of course, funerals are out of the question. You can't have lots of people gathering together now, and no one can travel easily, and lots of her friends are elderly, so it wasn't safe. So the funeral is my sister, her husband and the dog, and we'll have a virtual funeral to celebrate her.
Wow, I suppose that's the current climate we find. We're having to come up with these solutions. You've just landed back in Australia and in self-isolation. So as a doctor, talk us through what you're doing to stay healthy at the moment.
Yeah, it's a pretty weird experience being locked up at home 24 hours a day. So I've got some work to do, telehealth, so I can at least work. But you'd appreciate this, Darcy. It's really important to try and keep healthy, and exercise is crucial. I'm very lucky. I've got the rowing machine and the shed at the bottom of the garden, and that's keeping me fit.
Hey, Nick, you've just come back from London, as we know, and you've seen what's happening in Italy and Europe. You'll be talking to your medical colleagues around the world. Has Australia's response been appropriate?
Yeah, the response all around the world has been different, and Australia's has been a little bit mixed. I think if you talk to the real experts, the clue with pandemics is to go hard and go early. Don't muck around. I think we're getting there with Australia. Closing down is crucial with social distancing. So extreme though it seems to be shutting restaurants and clubs and places where people meet is one of the crucial ways of preventing this virus spreading.
I think on the go hard and go early, China maybe had that response, and they've got the capacity to do that given their structure. And you can debate whether or not you think that's morally right or not. Did the Chinese get it right? Should we be learning from their measures?
So countries like China, Taiwan, even Singapore, where they've got more authoritarian regimes and they've really locked down very hard, very early, have managed to stop this virus spreading very successfully. I'm not sure we could go quite that extreme in some of our more liberal democracies, but one of my concerns is once you then relax those extreme measures, it only takes 1 or 2 people to come into that environment with the virus, and the thing will take off again. So my concern is what happens next.
So you're adapting now, Nick. You're doing teleconferences, and the technology is there. Is that potentially the way of the future, to be able to Zoom in, Skype into your medical professional going forward?
I think this virus is going to change a huge number of things of how things work in the world. It's certainly going to change health. We've never used in urban environments telehealth at all in the past. There's been no funding for it. Now there is. I think once we've started doing this and discovered how effective it is, we're going to want to keep doing it because it really works well.
Dr. Nick Carr, we love having access to your expertise on the House of Wellness, particularly this time. Good luck in self-isolation. We're probably going to be hearing more about that. Thanks for joining us as always.
Thanks, Darcy. Take care of yourself.
Good to see you, Nick. Hey, just to note, Joe, that when I recorded that interview, it was before the government moved to put all arrivals into the country into hotels for 14 days. So Nick, of course, went straight home from the airport to self-isolate.
A really sad trip back to the UK for Dr. Nick Darcy. What an extraordinary woman his mum was.
Sounded like an incredible lady all around. After the break, we speak to a US environmental expert about the opportunity we all have to do our bit for the environment. That's next here on the House of Wellness.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's an important time.
From your perspective as an ICU doctor, what are your greatest concerns with regard to coronavirus?
My biggest concern is the number of people that are seemingly likely to get it here in Australia. We are still low in the numbers overall, but the rate of increase is really worrying us in intensive care, because if it gets to a stage where there are so many people coming each day to hospital that need our support in the intensive care, we're going to struggle to look after all of those people, potentially to the point that we won't have beds for them.
How many beds are there available to us currently in ICU?
The estimate is that we have around 2,000 beds in Australia. That capacity could be increased during a pandemic like this with, the right support that might get us to double that number. But it's still going to be a fairly low number compared to the numbers that we're hearing coming from places like Italy and more recently even the US.
Is that a fair extrapolation though? Are we on the same trajectory as places like Italy?
It's a fair point to say the context is very different here, and we can't be sure. What we have seen in most countries, though, is that the rate of rise of cases does increase, and we just have to prepare for that worst outcome.
Can you give us an idea of what it's like for you, practically speaking, in a hospital right now? What measures are you putting in place? What kind of preparation are you doing?
Well, everyone's taking it extraordinarily seriously. From all parts of the hospital, people are doing amazing preparatory work. I'm just pleased how our colleagues are all coming together to deal with this. And mostly at the moment, it's still in preparatory stage. There are patients, obviously, in the hospitals that have the coronavirus disease, the COVID-19, but there aren't overwhelming numbers yet. And people are still preparing how we can deal with a surge in capacity that we may need.
What other support do health workers need to ensure that they are protected?
I see the main thing as we need everybody who can work in the frontline to be able to be there. So we need all the nurses, all the doctors that are available and trained in this sort of medicine to be there. So perhaps that might mean that partners of intensive care nurses may need to stay home at the moment to look after their children so then a nurse can get back into the workforce. It means that doctors that have recently retired, I believe, are already starting to put themselves up to come back. We really need as many trained people as we can in the intensive care and the hospital workforce.
As someone not in the health industry, I get the sense that you're all, in a way, bracing yourself for this very, very difficult time. What's the morale like?
I think the morale is pretty good. There's an underlying feeling of sort of anxiety that I think we all carry into this, mainly because we're anxious about the workload that's going to be there. We're also concerned about the risk to us, understanding that as something like 10% of the patients of the healthcare workers in Italy have developed coronavirus, probably exposed to it by being at work. You're right, brace is the right word, but I think the morale is okay. Everybody's coming to work. Everybody wants to come to work. I haven't heard people saying, I just can't deal with this. I'm not sure how we'll be in another 2 months if the surge is really bad. Maybe people will start to break physically and mentally, but we just have to prepare for that and do our best and allow people to have breaks, mental health breaks if they need them, physical health breaks, whatever it might take.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for your time, and we all at the House of Wellness would like to send our best wishes and our greatest support to everybody in hospitals and GPs and everyone involved in this health crisis at the moment. We thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for sending out such an important message.
COVID-19 has changed the way we live. The shutdown of businesses across Australia with the global economy has been devastating for so many. A little later on, we'll chat to a money expert about that. But Joe, in terms of the environment, there has been some remarkable changes, and that may have happened more quickly than we thought.
Yeah, there's been a massive improvement in air quality, especially in major cities. There's less industrial pollution and global emissions are down, as is our overuse of fossil fuels.
Now, we've seen many of the images of wildlife appearing in places they haven't been before for a long time. The canals in Venice are clear for the first time in years, and experts are saying there's a real opportunity here to build greener economies.
So the shutdown has forced us to slow down. We're relying less on our cars and we're living a simpler life. It's made us focus on the things we really need and change our travel and consumer habits. Isn't that great?
It is brilliant. And I spoke to Professor of Earth Sciences, Rob Jackson from Stanford University, about the effect coronavirus is having on the environment. So, Professor, if you look at what's happening, and it's been a relatively short amount of time, and it feels like dramatic changes for the good, does that give you hope that the Earth's capacity to regenerate, if we look after it a bit more, is maybe greater than we thought?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge that, that people are hurting around the world. So I don't want to belittle the hardship and the heartbreak that some people have right now. But if I want to look at this and try and find a silver lining in it, it's really the possibility that we can transform our lives in terms of energy use, maybe using a bit less, maybe not shopping because we're bored, driving less. I look for ways that reducing fossil fuel pollution provides other benefits for us.
And Professor, we've seen some amazing images of the canals in Venice looking clear for the first time in recent memory, and dolphins and wildlife appearing in places they haven't done for many years. What's been the one image that has made you smile?
The thing that I have taken hope from is quite local. I mean, we are under shelter at home rules, but at the same time that we're being asked to distance ourselves socially and physically, I have a sense of hope that people are reaching out to each other. When you ask someone today, how are you doing? It has a different context than it used to have. So I'm optimistic about people and the way we interact. And I hope this virus, if it does something good, it opens up relationships for us.
And maybe that's what we're leaning into with you, is that perhaps people who thought the environment was something they couldn't have an impact on, now out of this see that their own behaviours do in fact count. What can we do when we do inevitably come out of this to change our behaviour for the good?
My message would be, first and foremost, to take care of each other, to care about neighbors and just be mindful of people who might be lonely or on their own. But beyond that, more broadly, I want to see us, change our energy sector, change the environment to increase green energy use, infrastructure, things that reduce pollution. we're creating hundreds of thousands of jobs every year around the world in solar and wind. I mean, those are the kinds of projects that will have long-standing benefits for people that last well beyond the virus. The fight against climate change goes on. It doesn't stop when there's a virus. It doesn't stop when there's a recession or a depression. We need to keep soldiering on, and ultimately, I think we're going to win.
That was a really interesting conversation, that one, Joe.
Oh, absolutely. It's like the universe is giving us just a little nudge to rethink the way we live and maybe help the Earth recalibrate a bit.
Yeah, I agree. After the break, we cross to Paris to see how the City of Lights and Love is getting on from an Aussie expat in lockdown. That's coming up next here on the House of Wellness. Welcome back to the House of Wellness. In times where we find ourselves having to self-isolate, we're seeing some remarkable stories of communities coming together and finding innovative ways to cope with being cooped up, Joe.
Oh, you're right, Darcy. It started with the mini music festivals breaking out on balconies across Italy. Then London sent out a citywide round of applause to the health workers, which I just loved.
Brilliant.
And now it's moved to exercise. I know Heinze is working on that right now, thank God, because he really has let himself go, obviously.
Joe, in the French town of Toulouse, there's a guy who ran a 40-kilometre marathon on his 7-metre-long balcony. Now, that is an effective use of time.
Ça va, tranquille, le confinement?
La foulée n'est pas top, là. Le parcours est moche, putain.
It is incredible. People are still allowed out to exercise, but only in pairs or on their own, and have to stick to physical distancing, of course. The number of joggers in Paris and worldwide is on the rise. We see it in our own streets, I think. And now's the time to focus on your health.
That's right, Joe. France went into nationwide lockdown on March 17. The country is experiencing what's described as the toughest health restrictions in its history. We spoke to an Aussie expat, Marilyn Georgieff, who's living in Paris.
It's like a set from a horror movie. When I say a horror movie, a science fiction movie. The noise of the traffic in Paris is like a summer sun in Australia. It just hits you and you go, oh, that hurts. Now there's the most eerie silence. It's the silence that makes it so weird. No one on the streets, no one on those busy streets, maybe one lone jogger coming down a big avenue, running in the middle of the road because there's almost no cars. So everything is empty.
So explain for us the restrictions, exactly what has been laid out for you that you can and can't do.
The restrictions are you can go to essential places, but I love the French way of what is really essential. So it's not what I would really call essential. For example, you can go and buy your tobacco. Can't do without your fag here. You can go and buy wine. Good heavens, mon Dieu. Without wine, how horrible. But the best I love is there is a traitor called Le Notre, which is the most expensive that you could ever imagine. They sell caviar, they sell foie gras, they sell the most delicious cakes you could ever wish at about $20 Australian for a cupcake. And that is doing a roaring business. So I suppose essential supplies takes on a new meaning when you're living in France. Do you know what keeps it fantastic, Joe? Is the solidarity with my Australian friends living in Paris. We've got an Aussie gals group. We exchange everything you can think of, mainly ridiculous jokes. But that keeps me very solid. The part that isn't is that when you see the reality, that's us, that's the light side. The reality is the doctors and the nurses and the aides to the nurses, they are exhausted. They're dying. They're dying. That's the reality. And they're young. They're getting terribly ill. And every night at 8 o'clock, people go to their window and they get pots and pans and wooden spoons and they all bang them and blow whistles, and it's all for the medical staff, but also for the unsung heroes, those people who come and pick up our rubbish, the people who are still driving the buses so these medical workers can get to the hospital, the ambulance drivers, the people who are picking up, unfortunately, the people who have died in old people's homes. The courage is enormous, and the people volunteering. They're unemployed chefs, people who have lost their jobs because of the shutdown, are making food and delivering it to people's doorsteps. So I suppose you could call it, Macron says it's a war, and I suppose there is this wartime solidarity that is heartwarming and very admirable.
Oh, I love that, Darcy. Even in lockdown, Paris is just glamorous and glorious.
You've got to love the French. Well, it sounds simple enough. Stay at least 1.5 metres away from each other, as we're doing, Joe. But how does that work when you hit the supermarket? We'll have more on that after the break, right here on the House of Wellness. Welcome back to the House of Wellness. Today we're aiming to bring some positivity and the chance to implement lifelong wellness changes while we're staying at home with some time on our hands. Now, Joe, what are some of the simple things that you've been able to make as a change?
Well, to keep my house really sterile as much as possible, I've set up a transition station in the house. So the place where you go when you come from wherever you've been, groceries or whatever, you come in, you leave the shoes outside and you disinfect, and then you can enter the house nice and clean.
Having a couple of teenagers in my house, particularly teenage boys, actually hygiene, understanding all of that has been a real positive. Let's hope that stays long after this virus has gone through.
OK, so we can go out to exercise, go to the doctor or pharmacist and go to the supermarket, right?
Yep.
But one of the things I hear talked about a lot is how to go shopping when lots of other people are there too, and how do we stay safe and keep away from them.
I know some shops are letting a few people in at a time, Joe, and supermarket staff are cleaning down keypads and things customers have to touch in between transactions.
Yeah, which is why I've got the top 5 ways to shop while you're social distancing, OK? Because it's up to us.
Well, I'm keen. Let's go for it.
OK. Number 1, you've got to keep at least 2 metres away from other people in the shop and the staff. So I think that means be patient. Let someone else reach for their peanut butter before you do. Don't be an aisle hogger and just move over a little bit.
Bit of respect for people around you, that makes sense.
I reckon. Number 2, just don't take the family with you when you go to the supermarket. It's a solo activity right now and you're not there to socialise.
OK.
Number 3, only go if you really need something. Don't go every day. Try for every few weeks. In our house, we've said we only go when we get to the second last tin of tomatoes. OK?
Well, that's good because we got through the panic buying, which was causing a lot of distress for everyone. So good point.
Exactly right. Number 4, check when you go, because lots of supermarkets have special shopping hours for the vulnerable and our health workers, which is really great. They should go first. Let them do that. And number 5, well, if you can, just don't go at all and get your groceries delivered.
5 great simple ideas, Joe, and I think it's worth noting as well that food supply in Australia is a real strength. We have got more than enough food to supply. You're not going to run out. In fact, 3 times what is required. And the same goes with our pharmacies and medical suppliers. There is no shortage. You're going to be fine. Panic buying is not required.
Fantastic, Darcy. While living conditions around the globe have been tipped on their head, everyday life does still go on. Funerals were one of the first things to be affected by restrictions on people congregating and maintaining a social distance.
One idea people are embracing is to have a small funeral now and a larger memorial service once social restrictions are lifted. To tell us more, I spoke to a celebrant and funeral director at TJ Scott & Son, Kelly Scott. Kelly, thanks for joining us at this extraordinary time. Funerals still need to take place. The world has changed, it seems, remarkably. What's happening in your world of being able to deliver funerals?
It's changed everything that we do. It's changed just how we are with our families. I mean, even for us as funeral directors and working in a small community, we know so many of our families not being able to hug and kiss them ourselves when they come in when they've lost someone they love. That's the first start, is just trying to minimise that physical contact with them, let alone their anguish and added grief that they can't have the funerals that they would hope to have for someone they love. It's just been a really difficult week as things have progressed, and we certainly understand, like everyone, the sacrifices that we all have to make. But when someone you love has died and having to be told that you can't have the people that you want there, it is really, really devastating for so many families.
heartbreaking, Kelly, to have to adapt. How are people finding a way? As you said, your instinct is to embrace someone and put your arm around them, give them a hug at the most emotional times. How are some of the ways people are adapting?
Look, in regard to not being able to be there with families, we're offering live streaming and families are taking phones, just using technology, which has been fantastic. It's a great way to use social media and just sending your love and support, sharing stories, sharing photos, all the things that you do at a funeral. We have to use technology to do that. And, it's amazing how many people have adapted so quickly because they're so adept at using it in other ways. Now we just have to use it in times of grief even more.
Have you been able to get people enough access to technology to be able to at least stream into the funeral service?
We do, and we've got great companies around that do live streaming outside our premises. We've also got webcasting in our chapels, so that will happen, that we still have something, even with the limited amount of people that can attend a funeral now. We can at least have people all around the country and indeed the world coming in and joining with us. I know it's not the same, but at least it's something.
GQ, if you are looking for a super healthy ingredient, you cannot go past baby spinach for its nutrient density. And what I love is it's really versatile. I mean, we could pan fry it, saute it, put it in a smoothie, just eat a handful right now. I absolutely love it. But today I'm going to keep it simple and make my baby spinach salad.
You've taken the words right out of my mouth, Hansie. That's my favourite way to have baby spinach. But doesn't it bring an amazing array of nutrients to us?
Absolutely, mate. I tell you what, I love the nutrients in baby spinach. We're talking antioxidants, vitamins, minerals. We got vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin K, antioxidants, folic acid, iron, magnesium.
We just back up a little, Heinz,
Okay.
because there's a whole range there. But let's focus on that last one that baby spinach brings to us, and that's magnesium. Did you know that it's useful in over 600 reactions in our body?
Mate, that's impressive. Over 600. What type of reactions are we talking about here?
Well, we know, Heinzie, that magnesium is important in converting energy from the foods we eat, so carbohydrates, fats and protein.
Yeah.
We know it's very important in neurotransmitter function, so that helps our nervous system, helps our brain. And it's more traditionally known for its use in muscle contraction, so important for overall muscle function.
Man, that is a lot. Well, I'm going to channel some of that energy right now into whisking this dressing up. Now, on the topic of maintaining healthy muscle function, muscle recovery is a huge component, especially after an intense workout. Am I right that there's an amino acid that works really well in conjunction with magnesium?
Yes, you're right, Heinzie. This is taurine, which occurs in our body, but it's also available in foods and supplements. Very important amino acid because it plays a role in reducing the risk of muscle fatigue. It helps reduce the risk of muscle breakdown, so really important in recovery as an athlete. What it also does is help balance electrolytes and maintain hydration.
GQ, just so I can understand correctly, we should be celebrating magnesium-rich foods such as this baby spinach salad, but then adding taurine in the form of food and supplements as well. I mean, we could pretty much be Olympians, right?
For us, Heinzie, culinary Olympics maybe, Olympic Games, no.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Go Healthy, the superior supplement for healthy energy and vitality. Try New Zealand's #1 premium supplement, now available in Australia.
Well, another delicious idea from Heinzie to keep us fighting fit. Any new creations coming out of your kitchen, Joe?
We've established mystery freezer meals. Because when you freeze food, if you don't label it, you pull it out, you've got no idea what it is. It's quite a game in our house, yeah.
I like it a lot. Hey, the hit to the global economy cannot be overstated at this time. We've seen many businesses close, possibly for good. And one of the most heartbreaking has been watching the queues at Centrelink grow on a daily basis, Joe.
Oh, it's devastating, Das. And the hospitality and entertainment sectors were among the first to have to close. Now it's estimated that at least 90% of all businesses will feel the blow.
Thankfully, Joe, some help is out there for small business owners and people who've lost their jobs. I spoke with finance expert Jason Cunningham on how to cut through the red tape when it comes to staying in the black. Hey, Jason, a lot of people have just lost their jobs. They can't pay their rent. They can't pay their energy bills. What do people do in that situation?
So the first port of call should be to jump onto the MyGov website and register at the MyGov website. Now, I know there's a lot of people, the traffic to that is astronomical and sometimes the website's crashing. If you just start the process and register it, go back in an hour or so, it still records from the time you first started. So the first course of action would be for those of us that have been stood down or made redundant or lost our job is to jump onto MyGov website. The banks are showing leniency towards us, so I'd get on the front foot rather and make communication with the banks. Now, the phone lines are clogged up. We've just got to jump on the internet, and every bank has got things uploaded on their website. I'd just be doing it in a measured approach.
Small business owners are hurting big time at the moment and have had some measures offered to the government, including a $250,000 loan. Are you advising people to take advantage of that and some of the other concessions? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, the first thing I'm saying to business owners is to take stock. So it's about 6 months of planning, working out your revenues and your expenses. And for a lot of clients, those revenues are dropping by 80 and 90%. But if we can budget and forecast some revenues and maybe get a bit leaner in our businesses, if the government's going to give us a 50% backing for loans up to $250,000, we're saying to our clients, see if you can get access to that. Whether you draw down on it or not, Darcy, is a different story. But what the banks and the government are doing are giving us that 6-month grace period anyway.
Jason, specifically on mortgages, people are concerned about their ability to pay them. What should we do?
About half Australians are actually ahead of their mortgages due to the interest rate cuts we've had over the last few months. So the different banks are giving us different offerings, but in the most part, you can get about a 6-month leniency or what they call a holiday period on your interest repayments. So we're in good stead to just make that phone call, address it first up, and we should be okay.
So I suppose a final question, and it's the $64 million question. How long does this go for and how quickly can we bounce back?
I'll just start by saying that I honestly believe that our leaders at government, both federal and state levels, have been doing an outstanding job. The first thing we need to do is we need to adhere to their advice. They've got the very best experts that they've surrounded themselves with, both health and economic perspective. We need to listen to them and we need to do what they say we should do. And that's keep our distances, stay inside when we can, and really let's get through this. The better we are at adhering to those guidelines, the quicker we're going to pop out of it. What I also know is that typically in times like this, we've been forced to lean up and reduce our discretionary spending and all that sort of stuff. I reckon when we come out of it, eventually we're going to come out better for it.
Thanks for your advice today on the House of Wellness. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Luke.
Financial advisor and money expert Jason Cunningham with some great advice for the many Australians who are now genuinely struggling. Joe, our last major recession was in the early 90s when the unemployment rate peaked at 10.8%.
I think a lot of us remember that, Darcy, and we could be seeing that again or even worse. However, as we keep saying, this will eventually pass. We bounced back after the 90s recession and we will again. I can't wait for that day when businesses open their doors and we all get to go and enjoy them together and we can get back to normal life. Although, as we now know, that may take quite a bit of time.
Meaning we need to keep supporting one another and Aussie businesses long after the COVID-19 crisis has passed.
Mascara is really important, and if I was left on a deserted island, that would be something I'd definitely bring. So a lot of people say to me that I need different mascaras for different looks. You actually can get away with one mascara as long as you know how to layer it and use it properly. For me, Herbal in particular is a mascara that I've always used. Being from London and learning makeup in London myself, it's a no-brainer. Mascara is all about the motion. So if you've already curled your lash, the way you apply it is typically from the root and then feather it to the end of the lash. I think some people then would go back in for their third or fourth layer and just apply it to the end of your lashes because you've already done the hard work and got the volume there, but you just want to add a little bit more of length. So the great thing about a mascara like Scandalise Volume on Demand is that it's all about the layering. You can apply a layer in the morning and then at night, if you do need to apply more, you don't have to take off your whole base. You can actually just build upon it and you don't see product build up like you see with so many others. So if you're going to work and you're in an office environment, you don't want to have clumpy, big lashes. You want to have something that's really natural. So I think 1 or 2 layers of mascara is typically what you go for. For something like a smoky eye, you want a very sultry, layered mascara look. So if you are going for a smoky eye and you're wanting a really full lash look, it's great to layer on up to 4 layers, I typically do. Never underestimate the power of a perfect lash. Now that you've mastered how to apply mascara, you're ready to take on any occasion.
Herbal medicine is as old as mankind itself, and our ancestors quickly discovered their healing and therapeutic properties.
Well, herbs have a very diverse and multiple effect on our bodies. So not one herb acts the same. They can provide so much to your body without side effects, and they work to heal and build your body.
Naturopath Angela Marie Smith doesn't like to play favourites, but there are 2 at the top of her list.
Ginseng is very beneficial for fatigue, essentially, for people who are feeling tired, a bit exhausted, overwhelmed, they're struggling. And in turmeric is an amazing rhizome. It's a root. It's been used in traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years to provide benefit for liver issues, skin issues, to act as an anti-inflammatory in joint pain and inflammation and mild osteoarthritis. The phenomenal part of turmeric that makes it really special, the active component, is called curcumin, and that is what gives it the yellow pigmentation.
Karmini Kaushik already knows about the benefits of turmeric after the herb helped her with the joint pain in her knees, caused by picking up after her young sons.
I think I first noticed it after I had my elder son. So in the first 6 months, I sort of started noticing it. I think it was the worst when they were the youngest and they needed lifting all the time. I spoke to my parents back in India and I said, look, this seems to be happening. And they kind of reminded me, they said, we've spoken to you about the benefits of turmeric. I mean, I've grown up in India and it's a very integral part of our cooking, but it's in small proportions and it's not necessarily eaten every day, but it's eaten quite regularly. And so they said, why don't you increase the intake of turmeric? Because we always have it at home, turmeric powder. To be honest, I was willing to try anything that helped me, which was natural. And it worked, so that's brilliant.
Inflammation is the biggest driver of chronic disease. So if you can combat inflammation through diet and lifestyle, but also incorporate a turmeric supplement to reduce inflammation, then you're really enhancing your health and well-being day to day.
Turmeric has definitely helped my day-to-day life. It's improved how I feel, how healthy I am, and therefore, obviously, I'm more active around my young boys, which is excellent.
This is the House of Wellness, where today you and I, Joe, are staying physically distant but socially connected and hopefully making everyone watching feel a little less isolated too.
Oh, it does. It feels so lucky that we're still able to work and keep our minds active and busy. I know that's not the case for many people, and I love coming in and hanging with you, which is great. It's absolutely key when it comes to maintaining good mental health, is staying active, and you've got to have a laugh. There's been some very funny things on social media. I like these. Oh, where's Wally? Oh, Corona fashion. Match made in heaven. Oh, yeah, I got that one. Oh, that is so me. Oh, my dog did exactly that.
I tell you what, Dennis, my dog, is looking at everyone going, if you make me go on another walk, I'm going on strike. Seriously, He's going, I need more sleep. Can everyone leave me alone? I like my time on my own. Can the kids go back to school? I've had enough.
Yeah, my dog Daisy, she is exhausted by the end of the day. Sleeps forever.
Now, staying sane and physically fit amongst the current challenges is what we're all about, Joe, and how to remain safe is best summed up by our doctor, Dr. Nick Carr.
So we have to remember that this virus is really infectious, and it's spread through respiratory system through coughs and sneezes, and through touch. So it's crucial that we follow the proper cough and sneeze hygiene measures, and then these hand hygiene, wash is absolutely crucial. And then the social distancing. We've just got to stay away from people.
I feel so lucky to have people like Nick and all our guests today to help us keep informed and connected, even though we're forced to stay physically apart.
Well, that's our show for today. Head to our website at houseofwellness.com.au for more information or to catch up on all the episodes of the show. Tune into the House of Wellness radio show every Sunday with our own Joe Stanley. And thanks, as always, to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. And until next time, stay well, stay home and stay safe.